and welcome all of you to my YouTube channel Animals and Pets with Partha. Well, today's topic is my mentors. In those days, even before I was born, many years ago, in 1866, my great-grandfather was born in a village in West Bengal called Boluhati. He grew up to become a very famous physician, a doctor, educated in the British era, and he was the recipient of 5 gold medals in all 5 subjects of medicine under the British rule. So all the examinations in those days were, of course, conducted by the British, and that was late Dr. Chatterjee, my great-grandfather. My grandfather, of course, was overshadowed by his father's deeds. And then, from that village boy, he migrated to Calcutta. And then he became, of course, a very famous doctor, a physician. Later on, of course, became a great ophthalmologist. He was a surgeon, and in those days, in the era when it was all handled by a scalpel blade, he could operate on the eye with both his hands. And all the stories that I'm going to tell you a little bit is what I was told by my father. Of course, the little part of his medical life that I know, I could divulge that he could operate. He held the record for cataract operation in those days with both hands, and then he held the world record for timing. He was the fastest operating eye surgeon in the British time. But then, he molded himself under the British rule as a Britisher, more British. He was less Indian and more British. He was more Britisher than a Britisher. Well, he all the hobbies in those days, like horses and dogs and all that, he sort of developed a great fancy for all animals. He was a great animal lover. And the small story that I will tell you, that when he was a boy of 6, one of his pet pigeons in the village got hit by a kite, and then had a slit in the chest. So little Manmotana ran to his mother and said, "Where can I go to take this bird? Where is the doctor?" So the mother said that, "Son, you don't have human doctors in this village, in this remote village. How can you find a doctor for pets or birds? Well, since it's hurt, it's time that you give some water in its mouth and let it die peacefully." Dr. Manmotana wasn't sort of satisfied with the answer. He instead took the suture, and the needle from his mother's stitching box, and he stitched the chest. And then he applied some, in those days, of course, Ayurveda was very important. So he put some Ayurveda paste on the wound, and it healed, and the bird survived. So whenever later on, when people ever asked him that how could you are such a great surgeon, can you tell us for how long have you been a surgeon? So his small answer was, "I am a surgeon from the age of 6. Well, that's what his medical part. The other part is his pets. He had, in his life, he owned all sorts of pets. And not only that, story goes that a fortune teller who could, a palmist, had told him that you will keep a tiger in your house, a tiger, whatever, maybe a leopard or whatever. And it so happened that he had elephants and even a leopard or a tiger, whatever, in his life. Of course, that is before, the history goes back a lot. And I can't tell you exactly, but my father was 14 when late Dr. Chatterjee died in the year 1939. Of course, much before independence. And so Dr. Chatterjee owned numerous varieties of purebred dogs, all imported from the UK. He had horses all imported from the UK. So the stories that I heard from my father about my great-grandfather, my grandfather, of course, enjoyed whatever his father had actually, all the hobbies of his father. And he also passed away practically at the same time, a little later, very soon after his father's death in 1939. So my father actually told me all these small stories about all his purebred dogs and all that he had. And later on, when he grew up, he also inherited all that hobbies that late Dr. Chatterjee had. Of course, in a much smaller scale. He could not afford to import, horses and dogs and all that. And then, but then still, my father happens to be my mentor. But then, Dr. Chatterjee also happens to be my mentor, my first mentor, of course, only on stories. My father introduced me to the world of animals, pets and dogs. And later on, when I studied in a hostel St. Xavier's in Hazaribagh. And then I was at that time quite a promising cricketer. That's what people tell me. My sports teacher, because I played not only for my district, but I was selected among the 17 in the Bihar state cricket team. But when I was only in class 7, and I played at the Heyman Trophy. I'm sure the trophy still is in vogue nowadays. And the Heyman Trophy was important because the state cricket team was selected from the performances that players did at that tournament. Well, after that, when I came to Calcutta, and I suddenly, by accident, of course, I started keeping dogs. By accident, went to a dog show, and that is where all everything happened, changed my life. It's like a fish takes to water. I decided, into everything else, I will become a dog person. And I already had dogs, and then it was a pursuit of passion. It's got nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with building a future and all that sort of thing. So, that's how it all started, and I came into contact with some of the greatest personalities that I consider great, who are my mentors. I will quickly run down the names. First is Mr. R.P. Mitter, who was a judge in the British era, and he was, fully he was an advocate in the British time. His 5 generations of his family were advocates practicing in the British time. R.P. Mitter was born in the year 1900, and he passed away in the year 1985. And believe me, I met him in 1975, and in 1985 I became an all-breeds dog judge. That is the gift that I could give to my mentor, who actually taught me dogs. In those days, there was no YouTube, no easy access to knowledge. You could only read books and you could only learn from experienced people. So RP was a true mentor to me. And anything, everything that I owe today, of course, in dogs, goes to RP Miller. Then, of course, in my life, I come across a lot of people, a lot of foreigners who influenced my understanding of the dog game and the dog sport and dog breeding and whatever. Let me just quickly run down again the names. In 1989, when I first went to Australia, I became a judge here in India in 1985. I was hit with assignment to Australia in 1987, but I had to miss out on it because of certain reasons, which is, of course, I don't like to go into the details then. But 1989, I was re-invited back, even after the cancellation in 1987 from my side, for the 13 appointments in my debut in Australia in several states. I not only judged the Dalwood Children's Dog Show, which was judged by W.G. Spilstead, a very famous international judge, and whom I first met in 1984 when I organized the show for a very famous club, which of course started it then, and I was the founder secretary of the club. I'm not taking names, everybody knows, the dog world in India knows, and of course it's a story known to everyone. Well, that is the time when I was influenced by W.G. Spilstead, and when I went there in Australia, I happened to go to Melbourne and I judged the Melbourne Royal. And I was inducted into the judging panel. I remember late Mr. Graham Head and Bill Crowley and Bill Kinsman. These are the people, the important people of the Melbourne Royal at the time. Then gave me the Melbourne Royal tie and the badge and said, Partha, this is something, will carry you in the dog world for till the time you live. Well, that's fact. And I judged the Melbourne Royal show, and you can see my picture in the panel of judges sitting in the middle. Yes, of course, I am with great humility. I might name a few more people that have actually influenced me. Mr. Stanley Dangerfield of UK, who first came to judge in India in 1976 in Calcutta, and then later on, of course, he came to judge in Chandigarh, where I was exhibiting. And then, of course, with him was Andrew Thompson. These are people who played a very important role in my career or my understanding of dogs. And I can tell you, well, Andrew Thompson, if people don't know, well, he had West Highland White Terriers, and a great personality, a very knowledgeable man, because I spent hours and hours discussing dogs with him. That is the only purpose when I travel at the length and breadth of the country. If I found that the judge was somebody who was knowledgeable, I would find time to devote, have a long session discussion on dogs and learn from them. Then, of course, later on, I have judged a lot of shows, which includes judging with late Mr. Maxwell Riddle of the USA, of course, great personalities like Prince Ahmed Hussain, then of course Dr. Harry Spira, then I already mentioned Graham Head and Bill Crowley, Laurie Grant, Arthur Lane, Ernie Drinkwater. There's a lot of people that I can keep naming. They're all, in those days, there was no YouTube, and you would only have to learn from seniors. And I would try and devote as much of time as I could listening to them. Then, of course, I'll name you Gordon Archer, Maury Archer, Helen Ferber. Well, I quite appreciate the lady, a very, very gentle lady. And the first time when I went to Australia and I was judging in Sydney, And then, of course, a small incident that happened was I suddenly got an invitation from Gordon and Maria Archer. I was quite surprised because they were from Vendôme Kennels, and I am a Doberman person. So I went to them and I asked, what is the reason for you to invite me for a dinner? So they said, before you, an Indian had come, and he told me that you will be judging soon, and well, he is a person you should not want to meet. You would not want to meet. That means he named me. He was an Indian who went there before me and told Gordon and Maria Archer that you wouldn't want to meet Mr. Partha Sekhar Chatterjee. And that is the reason you got that invitation. So we wanted to see who is that person. Well, so then, of course, the story goes longer and longer. I have been influenced by a lot of people like Lieutenant Colonel Ray Underwood. Of course, there are people who supported me in my pursuit. And I am completely overwhelmed by the amount of course, I'm missing out a lot of names, I tell you. A lot of people I adore, I appreciate, and I owe all my whatever success that I have achieved in the dog world, or whatever that people consider that I have been able to perform as a judge, as a breeder, as a dog person, and as an organizer. Because I not only organized and started clubs, I also been instrumental in helping a lot of clubs take off and start in the dog game. So with this, just a brief, it still goes longer and longer. I don't want to take it for longer. I'll end now that I will come back again in the next episode, but my mentors are a very vast spectrum of luminaries that actually are close to my heart, that help me in my passion to be fulfilled. Thank you and bye-bye. See you soon. Please subscribe to my channel and be tuned for more episodes soon to come. Thank you. Bye-bye.